Okay, so good afternoon, relatives. And Judge Vampola is with us here. Ken was a tribal court, public defender, prosecutor, judge in Winnebago for many years. And he's like he embraced the culture. Some of the families adopted him into their families. You know, he called me a couple weeks ago. He was at the cemetery offering up prayers over Choka Warner. He's got a Indian spirit, you know, these ways that really affected him. He lives his life in a good way. And so he come into the Winnebago tribe, and then he grew his hair. He made a tail. Now he's going a little soft on the top there, but yeah, back in the day, Ken had a full head of hair, you know, warrior, and really has a way about himself, and a man of God, a man of prayer, just a spirituality. And just now, we said a little prayer. He wanted Nate to say a prayer here before he gives his presentation, and he brought some stuff here he's going to talk about, but really honored and blessed that Ken, as the judge, he cleared his calendar to be over here today. So I could go on and talk about Ken. And I noticed here a lot of people's not here, so after I introduce Ken, I have to make a run through the casino, shame somebody out, take their pictures at the machine. So that's what I'm going to do here. So Ken, God bless you, brother. You know, call him brother. We took each other as brothers many years ago, and that's how I do it. You know, brotherhood is sacred, sisterhood is sacred. We got sons, daughters, everyone that takes care of me, waits on me, and so they bless me. So say, God bless the Ken. So thank you, brother. Ho. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm red-skinned because I'm embarrassed with that introduction. First of all, I'm not worthy to be here. And it's an honor. It's an honor to speak here with all of you. So I'm just going to tell my story. I know this is spirituality and recovery, but I'm counseling spiritual healing with some people that are in recovery. I'll talk about that later. Let me tell you briefly about my family. My wife's a CPA. We've been married 32 years. My oldest son is enrolled Chickasaw Nation, and he's Delta Force. And right now he's serving our country. He just came out of Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and now he's monitoring activities in the Pacific Ocean. I have a daughter, Catherine, who's an attorney in Grand Island, a son who's a financial advisor, and my daughter, Sarah, lives over here at Wakefield. And then I have 4 grandchildren. So my life started, I was a banker, and I went to law school when I was in my 30s. And when I graduated from law school, after a couple of years, I saw an ad in the paper. And part-time Winnebago tribal prosecutor. I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I read a lot of Native literature when I was in college, and so I went up to Winnebago to interview, and I'm sharing with you. I'm just sharing my stories, but I swear that the moment I stepped into Winnebago, my priorities in life started to change. My priorities would have been career and money, family, and then my Creator Spirit. And my priorities have changed immediately. It's the Creator, it's family, and then whatever it takes to put bread on the table. The first person I met walking into tribal court was Randy DeCora, and I probably should have just quit and went home then. So that's my history. I brought a few things up here. I was going to tell a little bit more. I became Winnebago tribal prosecutor, Winnebago tribal judge, and I worked with the governor at that time, Mike Johans. We worked on white clay, and I told the governor, when I was helping him become governor, I said, my request is that your first 90 days of office, you come up and visit Omaha and the Omaha Reservation and the Winnebagos and go to Santee your first 90 days Um, and he did. He honored that promise. In fact, Daryl Daryl LaPointe, got to get the families right. Daryl LaPointe passed in the meantime, and the governor came up for the funeral. And then Governor Johans called me up and he says, Ken, I want you to chair the Board of Parole for the state of Nebraska. I said, oh, thank you. No, I'm not leaving Indian country. He says, well, you have an opportunity to be on a community corrections committee that will change the whole concept of incarceration and try to help people. He says, come down and I'll make dinner and read this. So he sent me this LB or whatever it was, and I read it, and I walked in and I said, Governor, I'll take the job. And I remember when I left Winnebago, it was hard, a lot of tears, a lot of good words, but my heart, my nachke, is still in Winnebago. So I chaired the Board of Parole for 2 years, and then I saw the opportunity to become the judge in Fremont. And so I've been the judge 16 years in Fremont. I have a special juvenile court that is designed based on my experiences in Winnebago. I don't sit on a bench in juvenile court. I sit with the kids. I sit with the parents. It's all about teamwork and encouragement and healing. It's not about punishment. So we have a special court in Fremont based on what I've learned as a tribal judge. And I'm in the process with Ms. Lyons, Ms. Gorsuch, that we're starting a special court for children, and it'll be called Restore the Family. And the concept will be an intensive program that the children will not be removed from the family home and placed in treatments and institutions. We're going to bring the treatment to the family and try to keep them together, because removing these children from their homes is worse sometimes than living with the parents that have drug and alcohol problems. So we're in the process of doing that, and I think when you hear restorative justice, that's our concept. I brought a few trinkets up here. I'll talk about this. I have Wankshik-Dani. I have some cedar. This tomahawk was made by Travis Bennington, and it has the Cherokee creation story on it. And he made this for me. It's #1. He only made 5 of them. And in Cherokee, he says I'm his brother. And he was supposed to be with me today, but we couldn't connect. So he says hello to everyone. And I think I don't want to take a lot of credit, but I think he's realized more of his Cherokee roots now in the last few years of our friendship. He also made me this peace pipe with the eagle feathers on it. And I have some books. Kunu, The Winnebago Boy Escapes. I have Winnebago Oratory. This is the writings from the chiefs. And one time I was meeting with the Attorney General in the Whedon seat, or the district attorney, and he says, you really are into being tribal judge. And I said, yes, I am. So it's a book of Winnebago Oratory. And I have other books up here. But I'm going to tell the story I feel so unworthy to tell. I've been fascinated about the story of Little Priest, Chief Little Priest, and I know that's his marker. I know that's not where he's laid to rest, but his marker's up there. And one day I was coming back, probably from the store with a burrito stuck in my pocket, and I thought, well, I'm going to go find Little Priest's marker. So I left and I drove up to the Winnebago Cemetery, and when you pull in, there's a line of military markers right there with an American flag, and I said, oh, he's military, he'll be there, but no, I didn't. No, he's not there. So I continued to wind up, and you all know the cemetery, there's a cottonwood tree, and there's the cement, and you go through the gate and up the steps. And I parked under that cottonwood tree, and I walked up those steps, and I walked immediately to his marker. To this day, I could not have walked to it more directly. I went right to it. And here's where things drastically changed. When I walked around and I faced that marker, I can only describe emotional lightning striking me. There was a bolt, and I felt the pain. I felt sorrow from generations, and it was like a bolt of emotional lightning drove me to the ground, and I collapsed and I wept. I cried out loud, and I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. It was powerful. I remember I kind of woke up. It happened to be Warner Earth, and I hadn't really gotten to know Warner yet. He was driving down doing some mowing, and it kind of brought me out of it. So I go back to the tribal court, and I'm just shook. I'm a mess. And John Earth, the late John Earth, my brother, he was at home with Natalie, and he says, something's wrong at the tribal court. She says, oh, John, you're on vacation. He says, no, there's something wrong. And he comes through my door, and he says, what happened? What's going on? And I told him what happened. And he says, oh. He says, that's powerful. You need to talk to Warner. So that's how I got to know Warner Earth, the late Warner Earth, a great, great man. I'm going to miss my time with him. So I went very, very native. Hair long. I like the native way, from the prayer flowing through me. I wasn't much for church, and started learning. Well, I didn't speak Ho-Chunk very well. I said a few things in Ho-Chunk that ended up being an insult. So I can understand some Ho-Chunk, but I don't try to speak it. Sarah Snake and Terry Medina put me on a weekend, a Catholic weekend. And so I'd kind of walked away from my Christian faith, embracing native ways, and then they had me do this weekend. And I'm going to tell you about one vision that I had. I've had a lot of experiences, and we could go on, but this one vision was profound. I was standing in a void, like a void of outer space without any stars. And in this void, all I can explain is the grandfathers of the four directions came to me in this dream. And they were backlit with this intense light, absolute intense. The light was so intense, their white hair was glowing silver and white. It's almost alive with electricity. It was so bright. But you couldn't see their faces. And they came to me, and they told me I was to cut a prayer staff. And I was to reach as high as I could to cut it, then to hold it. And at my eye level, I was to cut the cross of Christ in the four directions. And down the front of it, I was to carve the words, in his name. And what that told me was that my faith and my spirituality is both my Catholic faith and my spiritual center, which is Winnavegas. I told Warner about this, and he goes, oh, you mean sitting down on the ground as high as you could reach, a Native American or a Native American church staff? I said, no, as high as you could reach. And he says, that's the old ways. When the clans would come to the fires, they'd bring their staffs, put it at the fire, and then when it was time to talk, the head of the clan would talk. He says, that's the old ways, and he says, that's very powerful. And one day, he says, you cut that prayer staff yet? And I said, no. Well, we're going to do it now. And it was a rainy day. I said, it's raining. He says, I'm a water spirit. It's a good day. So we went up in the Winnebago, and he says, you have to cut it from dogwood. And so Warner and I cut this staff. We put tobacco on the stump. And I swear as we cut it, I could hear a cry go up. So I pray with this. I was just praying for it last night for one of our Winnebago young ladies. I'm going to talk a little bit I said, I'm not worthy. I've been blessed to be part of healings. We had a woman in our court. Her name was Cindy Kerber, and she was a mediator in Winnavegas. And she loved Winnavegas. She said she really enjoyed coming up there. And her granddaughter was born, and she was born with some horrible disease, and nobody knew what it was. So the infant newborn baby was dying. The baby was born in the middle of the week, and by Friday they were planning the baby's funeral because they didn't know what was wrong, and the baby was dying. I couldn't get that out of my mind. And I hunt on the Platte River. I have a place on the Platte River where I go, and it was a rainy day again, like today. And I'm walking back, and I look at my feet. And this was laying in front of me. And when I picked it up, it had a drop of blood on it. It had been freshly put on the ground in front of me. Of course, I couldn't resist a drop of eagle blood. But I went back and I realized that I was to pray with this for that baby. And I remember I took it back to where I found it, and I couldn't hold it still in the wind. It was spinning and vibrating. It was like alive, this feather. And so I go to the spot where I found it, and I prayed both ways. I prayed to the four directions, but I also prayed Our Fathers and Hail Marys for that baby. Now, I'm just blessed to be part of the Creator's work, because the next day they discovered what was wrong with the baby. And the medicine was about an 8-hour jet flight to Omaha. And that little girl, little Emma's 10 years old now and healthy. Travis Bennington's daughter, Willow, was struck with something similar and was dying. And I remember Travis and I were alone, and he was crying, I'm going to lose my baby. And I said, we'll just keep praying. And then one day I was helping him hold vigil by his daughter laying with all the wires at Children's Hospital in Omaha. And I said, you and your wife, I said, take the evening off. I'll stand vigil with her. And again, native way, and I had my grandmother's rosary, and I laid the rosary down by her pillow. And I prayed all the mysteries of the Catholic rosary. I prayed because this little girl is enrolled Cherokee. Her name is Willow. And within a few days, they discovered what was wrong. Again, just to be a small part of this Creator's healing. But she's 3 years old and rambunctious as anything right now. She is completely healthy. But I wrote a poem. I want to share a poem with you. I write poetry. This poem's called On Willow's Pillow. I want you to listen to On Willow's pillow came to rest a dying child reft of breath, as eagle spirits rose above her chest to sing clicks and beeps to soothe her sleep. On Willow's pillow, flecked with tears, a canvas bearing the loving fears that the eagle spirits standing guard were not enough to grant their prayers. On Willow's pillow, her eyes are dry with thoughts of why so many sighs, while tubes and wires grant her life with eagle spirits standing by. On Willow's pillow are eyes of blue, a child's breath as her life renews, So eagle spirits can now attest that all but love is now at rest on Willow's pillow. Okay, part of this is recovery, spirituality and recovery. I think we're all recovering over something. My first wife divorced me, and that's what caused me to go to law school. And I think we always recover from people we love and care about. And I haven't talked to my ex-wife since yesterday. She comes to she lives in Dallas. She comes to our family events, and we're just a family. That's why I'm hard as a judge dealing with divorce when people could go from love to hate. I don't understand that. My family, we all love each other. Whether we're married, divorced, doesn't make any difference. So, if you saw my office is full of eagle statues and eagle pictures and a lot of children. I have so many children that are in my court system that I take their pictures and I put them on my door. So my whole door is covered with pictures of the kids in my court system because that's my life. I love my children in that court system. And I look at them when I feel like quitting because there are days I'm ready to quit. But there they are. I got that nice leather Terry gave me. It says, brothers and sisters are sacred. Sits on my wall. So my office is very, very native. And I'm going to tell you the story, and this just happened in the last week. I'm going to just call him Ivan. And Ivan is truant from school. He's misbehaving. He's uncontrollable, and he's 15 years old. And he comes into my court, and he's got dreadlocks braided, so he's wearing 4 braids. And he's dark. His father's Mexican, and mom is enrolled Santee. Now they enrolled Santee, and his attorney said his closing. He says he doesn't care, and he's not going to do anything you tell him to do, because he doesn't care. So I said, okay. And then I just knew he was his mom was enrolled, and I think he's eligible to be enrolled. So can I have him for 10 minutes? Ivan, come with me. And so I took him back in my office, and we sat down. I said, look around my office. What do you see? He says, well, I see a lot of kids. I said, what about the pictures and the statues? Oh, I see eagles. I said, let me tell you a story. And I started telling him some stories. And I said, you have some identity issues. Your father's Mexican, lives in Mexico. You're in Fremont, Nebraska. By the way, any relatives of Charlie Earth? I got the article right here. And I said, you're part Native American. I said, you have identity issues. You don't have a purpose. And so I was talking to him, and I said, you're old enough now to be the man of the family. You do have purpose. And we talked, and I went to we shook hands. He promised me that he'd do what's necessary to be the man in his family and help his mom. And he's got younger siblings, and he's starting to have a negative effect on his 13-year-old brother. And I said, that's not your purpose. You're to be the leader. And so I shook his hand to leave, and he says, can I hear some more stories? So my 10 minutes turned into probably 20. But he promised me, we shook hands, that he was going to do everything he's supposed to do, to get his life straight, to get an education. And I said, I want you to go in there, and I want you to take your mom's hand, tell her you love her. And he did that. At the other promise I said, when you're no longer part of my jurisdiction, when I don't have jurisdiction over you, I promise you, I'll take you to Winnebago so you can meet some good people who will help you. So he made the promise, and I took him in. He took his mom's hand. They stood up. They told each other they loved each other. They cried, and they hugged, and they wept. We do a lot of crying in my court, including me. So, and I'm ministering to someone you all very well. I'm not going to name any names, but she's in Dakota County right now. I've made several trips up there, and I'm working with her attorney to get her into treatment. They're going to take her in front of the district court in 2 weeks, hopefully get her probation pled down to a misdemeanor instead of a felony, and I'm going to work with her attorney to get her into treatment long term. The reason I'm sharing this, part of this is spiritual ministry. You're talking about recovery. And that's what we do. It's not just about our own personal recovery from whatever we need to recover from, and to seek that spirituality, which is the basis of recovery, but to minister that spirituality to those around you. It's not only native. My county attorney, if any of you followed the press, my county attorney, Oliver Glass, got in big trouble. It was all over the Omaha World Herald and the U.S. He had to resign as the county attorney. He'd been there for 10 years, and we call each other brother. He's a good man, but the alcohol destroyed his family and destroyed his career. And now that I'm not the judge that he has to appear in front of, now I can counsel him. And we spent an hour in my office the other day. I'm counseling a young woman who's a waitress at Applebee's who is seeking higher power for her addictions. I had to turn off my ringer, she'd probably call. But I'm trying to find some creator, some kind of spirituality for her to rely on for her recovery. Let's see, I'm going to kind of wind up here a little bit. I don't know how long I've been going, but I'm going to end it. When I went up to see this young lady, I couldn't get in because I wasn't on the visitation. So I went back to Winnebago and met with her dad and met with some other people I knew because I was kind of looking for friendly faces. And I mean it when I say I feel I have more friends here than I do in my hometown because I'm so isolated as a judge. So there's a lot of friendly, good faces here. I forgot where I was going. Oh, I know. So I went up to the cemetery and I took tobacco to a little priest's marker, and then I went over and I sat on the bench with all the Earth family and put tobacco on all of their graves. And I sat there and watched the sun go down, praying for so many people. And I pray for the tribe. But this car pulls up right at sunset, and out come some people. And turns out the mother is of the Earth family. That's my grandparents over there. And she had this little boy about this big. And they were decorating her mother's grave right there. And her husband didn't know who, he was like, who's this guy? Because I had a suit and tie on, come out of the sitting up in the Winnavegas cemetery with a suit and tie on. And she kind of explained a little bit. But I asked them if they had any Wonkshikdani. Am I pronouncing it right? Oh. Now, LaDonna or Nate gave me this. Tobacco. LaDonna. And I keep this in my car. And so the little boy, I asked him if they had any Wonkshikdani. No. So I took this tobacco up, and that little boy put his hand out, and I poured tobacco in his hand. And then his mom led him over to the grave and put it in the shell. Pinagigina. Hope. Any questions? Again, pinagigina. Thank you. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
So what's the moral of your story?
The moral of the story is never give up on that basis in your life, that spirituality. Never, ever give up. I teach that to these kids. Look, from this day forward, look back. And everything in the back is what makes you stronger. And from now forward is your new life and your new beginning. But there are failures and falls and get back up. So that spirituality, it's your foundation, your crutch, your walker, your wings. That's the moral of my story.
Thank you.
Let's give Ken a round of applause, please. Oh, good one. Stay. Really proud of Ken. Those tears come out, and I say it all the time. When that spirit is there, you can't help but let those tears out. And we're seeing here this morning. I always talk about the Croods. You ever see anyone see that movie, The Croods? Raise your hands. No. Anyway, I tell that story because I didn't want to go to see that movie, The Croods. I had 3 of my grandchildren with me. I can't remember what movie is on, but I did not want to go see The Croods. So I had Brianna, my granddaughter. I said, "Okay, Brianna, wait, but we got to flip a coin. Choka, we want it. I'm telling Grandma," she said. So anyway, I flipped the coin, and she caught me cheating. "Choka, I'm calling Grandma." I said, "Geez, only 10 years old," pulled out her own phone. Anyway, so I ended up going and seeing The Croods, and man, as soon as I sat down, that caveman, his family, man, I was all in it. It was all over, man. The fatherhood. That movie is about fatherhood. And that had that little cave girl and that cave boy come around, checking the daughter out. And the old dad's right there, boy, ready to kill. And so anyway, go through that movie, towards the end of the movie. I don't want to give it away, but towards the end of the movie, there's a big volcano that comes. And the father is saving his family, throwing them over the water. And then the lava comes, the smoke goes. And I thought the father died. I'm all teared. I start crying in that movie. And my granddaughter's right there. Choka, are you crying? She's right there. The tears come out. Oh, man, I got some salt. I got some popcorn in my eye. Choka's crying. But I shed that tear. I shed that tear because that's how a powerful father and mother it is. But we say it, I die for my children, but don't ask me to give up my bros, my drugs, right? So we say one thing and do the other. So that spirit touched me that day, that Walt Disney movie, tears come out. And so when those tears come out, it's cleansed my heart and soul. So for me, my walk of life is all about certain relatives, all about Father is sacred. And so that, Brother Kent, man, he's just one of those souls, that spirit, he embraces our ways, he learns our ways, talks our ways. And so that's how we do it. Prayer. Tonight, we're going to have Perry Creek Singers. Going to bless us with some psalms tonight. We'll go around and smoke you off again with that sage, to cleanse us here. Then on the agenda, I got the latest copy of the agenda which is the right copy. So tonight we're going to take 10-minute break, and then Isaac's here, and then I'm going to make my round through the casino, see who's in there. But tonight at the banquet, Mark Pooley over here is going to be the keynote speaker. It's kind of crazy when I was talking to Mark. Yeah, I'm just going to come to the conference and hang out. Then LaDonna talked to Mark. Also, now he's the keynote speaker for tonight, which is real appropriate. Mark is, he'll talk about himself tonight. I'll introduce him. But also on the agenda is Rex Mueller and Ed Mahan, the Sioux City Police Chief and the South Sioux City Police Chief. They're going to bless us with their presence tonight because they come out to listen. Both police chiefs here in Iowa and Nebraska have formed a Native American Liaison Committee to look at serving our Native people in urban settings here. And then tomorrow, we have people from Rosecrans and the state DHS coming over here, finally embracing our ways. You know, Patty's sitting right here, right in front. And so with that, I just want to mention that here, and then thank Brother Ken for coming over here. Like I said, he probably had to move mountains to clear his calendar to come over here. So God bless you, bro. And so now we're going to take a little break. Then we're going to have Isaac Smith talk. And Isaac Smith, my Chunchke nephew there, he when we go to memorials or we go somewhere and Isaac takes the floor, you better sit down and get comfortable, boy. Isaac can go. He can go, boy. But I always listen to him. Because he's got a way about himself. His knowledge of the ways, he's even my wife's a relative of mine. So he's got a good spirit, a good way. And then he was supposed to be on this morning. He finally showed up at 1. I don't know what happened, but anyway, he's here. Made his presence known here today. So we're going to take a little break here and going to call upon him at 2. Then on the agenda, we're going to be excused about 3:15, but Isaac's talking, so we might be here till 5. I don't know. We'll see what goes on this afternoon. So with that, relatives, go ahead and wipe your foreheads off, take a break, go to the bathroom. We'll start here in about 15 minutes. Ahoo. Okay, relatives, I'll have your attention here. Say thank you again to Ken. Brought his words of wisdom over here. He touched our spirits. And thank him for those tears that he shed here today out of love and compassion for the people he serves. And I haven't been to his office lately, but I'll stop in there on my way through. And I had to do a triple take. My brother Scott Aldridge walked in the door here. You know, it's always a blessing for him and Pete over there to come together and share their presence here with us. So God bless, bro. Thank you. So now, like I said, Isaac Smith is on the agenda here this morning, and so we kind of flip-flop. Al Pooley talked this morning, so on the agenda was Isaac Smith, empowerment through spirituality, our traditional cultural way of life. You know, and our theme this year, battling substance abuse with spirituality and our traditional cultural way of life, is it's where it's at. It's where it's happening. Like I said, people, not just our native people, people all colors are finally listening to our native spirituality and our native ways. It's making great things happen for the fathers and mothers, especially for the children. Especially for the children, as Ken said, you know, those children are a blessing, heavenly blessing from Mona to Consuela, Wakanda, Jesus, whatever name you give them. That's a blessing. So Al know we say it. Here's the father and the mother come together, the co-creators with the creator. Blessing the children. Then Brother Ken said it. We're spiritual beings here before we come over here for a little while. Then we're going to go back over there to our spirit relatives. Then back to Isaac, his Choka, Guste Smith, my father-in-law, Walcon Smith, Thunder Clan relatives, you know, even Delbert and all of our relatives have gone on over here. So Isaac paid attention. He really paid attention and he listened. So he's got a lot of knowledge to share here with you. And so I'm going to introduce him here. Then I have to excuse myself for a few minutes to do some court administrator duties, then come back in there. So Isaac, can you come up here and bless us here with some words? Oh.
I want to say thank you to each one of you, first of all, for making your way over here. And then I want to say thank you to the people that put this together behind the scenes. And then each one of you that looked over in my direction and asked if I could be a part of this. And I didn't bring anything with me other than myself and my nephew, and a thought and a feeling to come over here. And one of the things that the fatherhood and motherhood is sacred, the things that I hear them talk about and the things that I see them do in our community is they help a lot of people straighten out their lives. They help them get back on track. And I was looking at some of the stuff that's gone on in our community, and not only in our community but others. And there's a lot of hurt, and there's a lot of sorrow, and it seems like a lot of times today in Indian country across the board, one of the things that our young people they have trouble with is grieving and mourning. And a lot of times when they start down these different roads where they think they're going to lead to something, they lost a loved one. And they have that feeling that they are searching for something. And one of the things that they're always searching for is they're searching for love and understanding. And so when relatives, when they make their prayers, they always try to pray for that we could come by a good understanding, come by a good feeling. And even in some of our ceremonies, those things are made mention in there. And a part of that is because of where we come from, what we've gone through, and where we are today. It all started with the power of prayer way back there. And I know there's some of us in this room that remember in the mornings to give thanks for another day here on creation. And sometimes we go through our lives and we look at all the different things that are wrong with it, the things that we don't understand. And so when we start our morning like that, then our day seems to be like that the rest of the day, a certain thought and a certain feeling. But if we start our day with a prayer and asking for help and strength, knowledge, wisdom, love, respect, and compassion, then our day seems to get lighter, not only mentally, but physically and spiritually. And a lot of times, some of the things that we go through, we get caught up in the day-to-day things in our lives, worrying about a cell phone charger or gas in our vehicle, those kind of things. And when we do that, it seems like sometimes we put one of the most important things on the back burner, and that's our relationship with the Creator. However you pray, however you believe, just to continue to pray for each other and yourselves and your families, the children's and the ones that are coming behind us. And so if you're, by doing that, if you're able to do those things and remember those things and practice them in your own home, you're going to start to look at life a little bit different. You're going to start to understand how life is and the things that we don't have no control over, but the things that we can change through the power of prayer. And so a lot of these things that we go through in our everyday life, sometimes at the end of the day, the answer will come why we went through that, or why that train took extra long for it to cross their path. Maybe there was a reason behind that. And so sometimes it's hard to understand those things. There's little obstacles that kind of come in place in our paths, and sometimes we get impatient. That's one of the things that mankind suffers from a lot, is impatience today, impatience with each other, impatience with our children, impatience in our life. And one of the things that we see a lot of times that go on is when our young children and our young people, when they get caught up in these different things, they pick up these different drugs and alcohol in their life and they place them in their path. Then one of them drugs is meth and cocaine, and they're stimulants. And a lot of times what that does is it makes the body feel hyper. It makes the body feel a certain rush. And so they begin to try to chase that. And they get impatient with each other, impatient with their dealers, impatient with their relatives that won't loan them money. And so it starts off like that, and it starts going down the wrong path. And so some of those relatives, when they come and they pick up alcohol, and it slows things down for them, and it seems to numb some of their pain, is what they think at the time. That's what I thought anyway. And so when you're able to set those things down through your relatives and through your family and your mom, your dad, your family that prays for you, then you're able to set those things down. Then you start to understand a little bit about life. And you're not ever going to understand the full extent of life until you take your last breath. And so a part of that is that when we're working through these programs and starting developing these curriculums for some of these children and some of these people that are trying to straighten out and better themselves in their life, one of the main things is that to have patience with them. And if we're able to do that, then it helps you understand the mindset and the things that they're going through. And you hear it sometimes when you travel around. They say one of the most important things that you could give somebody is your time. And if you really stop and you think about that, that's really true. Because as we go to our jobs every day we go to our jobs, and we go there and we go there and we collect a paycheck, and we go there and we collect a paycheck and we pay our bills, then that becomes the norm for us. But while we're doing that and chasing that, the one thing that we're not giving to our children is our time. So then as we become younger fathers or young mothers, and we start to grow up and we have children, and we see our children going down these wrong paths that lead to nowhere, then we come to that part where we question ourselves sometimes. Why did my kid turn out like this? Or why is my relative like this? Why are they doing these things? And it hurts to sit there and to see them go through that, to see them chase their next urge. And so when we're able to see that part into it, that far into it, then we're able to see the part that we're missing, the spirituality. And the simplest way that you could put it is there's 4 things in our lives that you could look at. There's a lot of things in there, but just 4 things you can put when we're going around and we're looking for all these things, and we're working with these people that are looking for these things, the different things. They have the 4 things is you usually start out with your friends. You're worried about your friends, meeting them for dinner or meeting them at a party or social gathering of some sort. And then your job, am I going to be hungover, or am I going to be able to make it to work tomorrow? And then pretty soon, then your family, what's your family going to say? And so if you take all of those things and take all of those things there, and you're able to think about the things that we're looking at, all the things, all of our people that are picking up, and we pick those things up and we see them, and we stop and we wonder, how come my kid turned out that way? How come my relative turned out that way? Because somewhere along the line there, somebody didn't spend time with them. Somebody didn't sit them down or tell them in their own home around their own dinner table, hey, these things are going to lead you to nowhere. These things are eventually going to lead you into depression. And so if we're able to do those kind of things and look at that, we all got to be able to understand that. If we're able to do that, the first thing that should be in that lineup is your relationship with the Creator. So I tried to share that and express that to a lot of the relatives. If you put the Creator first, however you believe, God, Jesus, Mona, you put the Creator first thing in the morning, pray for your day to be good, then everything else is going to start turning out to be good. Everything's going to start taking its place. And so when we get going and we start to understand that, there's sometimes, in the Ho Chunk way, we don't believe in coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. And so sometimes when we get way away from that, we find that part where we think, I was over here and I ran into so-and-so. And when you run into so-and-so and then they shared a message with you saying that, hey, my relative over here is doing good or they're not doing good. So we would look at that as a coincidence. But the thing is that maybe you were supposed to go over there so they would share that with you, so you know how to go about that. Maybe you could put that in your prayer. And a lot of times these relatives, and we see them, I have some of them right in my own family that today can only go 4 days without alcohol. And he's a young man. And he gets shaky and he gets sick. And so I tried to bring him around and kind of show him different things. You could go over here to the Sweat, you could go over here to the Native American Church, you could go over here to the Lodge, but it's up to you where you want to go. And when they're in that mindset of nobody loves me, nobody cares about me, everybody's turning their back on me, then that's when it's time to pray hard for them. Pray hard for them so that the Creator can go into their mind and change their mind the way that they think. And so I try to do those kind of things. And some of the stuff that's gone on in our little town today, in our little village today, is we have a lot of people that come in and they have real good intentions of working with our people, and they put their whole heart into it. And sometimes it's hard for them to understand what it is that this person is missing, what it is that this person needs. And if you take that person and set them down and listen to their story, each one of us got a story clear up to this point. Listen to their story. They're going to share all the things that they want to share with you. But it's up to you to be able to find that connection, to even dig a little bit deeper, to find what really has gone on. And if you're able to do that, kind of get way in there and listen to what they have to say, they're going to find that one thing that they're missing. That's why they're chasing it, and that's love. So the only way that we can find that love is to go back around the fireplaces. That's where you're going to find it at. That's what they would tell us. And so if we're able to go around into our culture, into our spirituality, into those ways, we're going to find that love right there. Through that fire, it's going to show us all the things that we're missing in our lives. And when there's a death in our community, one of the things that I always notice is that back home over there on the other side of the river there, we light a fire and sometimes we'll have it going for 4 days. There's a teaching in that about that fire, all the different things and what it can do and how you utilize it and call on it. It's got its own spirit. And so we have these people that will go around and they have a hard time in their lives and they'll come over there to where that fire's lit and they'll stand around out there and they'll share jokes and laughter and smiles and hugs and handshakes, those kind of things. Some of them will come over there intoxicated under something. And I was sitting there and I was sitting there one time and I was thinking about that. I said, gee, I said, they should know better not to come around and be disrespectful. You know, well, this family's going through something here. And as I was sitting there, it was kind of getting towards the morning time. And the thought came to me and it was, it said, everybody has a spirit. All of us have a spirit and it lives right back here. And so we're naturally drawn to that fire because we know the power of that fire, what that fire can do. And if you look back from generations to way back there from the beginning of time, that fire's been with us this whole time. So even though that the relatives of the friends and family and they might be under that influence, they're naturally going to be drawn over there. It's almost kind of like sometimes in the spring you turn your porch light on and all the bugs come over there, you know. Not calling them bugs or anything like that or anything, but I'm just saying that you're naturally drawn over there. And so some of the relatives, they'll come over there and they'll kind of snap out of it and they'll start drinking coffee or we'll bring them something to eat here, you know. And then some of our relatives, they'll get up and they'll try to express themselves and then wanting to let the family know how it is and how they feel in the relationship and how they thought of the relative that's laying in state. And so as time went on, I started to think about that and I said, I would tell those relatives, I said, hey, go get some rest and come back in the morning and eat breakfast with us. That way it's not pushing them away from that fire, it's not pushing them away from our teachings or anything, but it's telling them to go get some rest up, clear your mind a little bit and then come back around and be a part of this here. And so as time goes on, I started to notice that a lot of our programs are starting to look towards spirituality, towards culture, language, tradition, these kind of things. These are the things that brought us this far today, those kind of things right there. And so now we all look at each other and sometimes we kind of look and we have these problems that come up and arise and we sit there in a conference room or around a big table and we try to find solutions for these. And some of the solutions are the most simplest things, is to be able to go over and see that person. Don't wait till they're on their deathbed in the hospital. Go over there, buy them flowers while they can smell them, not take them to their grave. Those kind of things. Spend time with them. Pray for them, with them. Those kind of things. And so a lot of the stuff that goes on in our ways is we're fixing our spirit, we're cleaning our spirit. In a sweat, we're making a sacrifice, kind of cleansing ourselves, everything physically, spiritually, mentally, all of that. And then when we go to our doings and our gatherings in Indian country, whatever ceremony it may be, there's a certain way that we talk to each other. And that certain way is we talk good to each other. And we go up and greet each other, shake our hands like that. And then there's even a part in there that they would tell us, they said that there was some of the different ceremonies, they would put a pole outside by the door and they'd put a little stake in it, or it would kind of have like a little branch coming off of it. And it would say that any of your ill feelings that you have towards any of their relatives, take them off and hang them onto there. Come in there. In there, around there, what we're trying to do and what we're doing is we're being good to one another. We're loving one another. We're taking care of one another. And when you go out that door, it's up to you if you want to pick that back up and put that back on. Maybe out there you could feel some kind of way towards each other or about each other. But in here, we're trying to take care of something. And so they would tell us that. And so as time went on, I started to understand these things. And when I was younger, I lost my mom when I was 9. She got ran over by a train. She was out drinking with her friends and was trying to, my grandpa lived about 150 yards away from the train tracks. And she was trying to crawl under that train and go home over there to his house. And that train jerked like that and cut her in half. And so at the time I was staying, and I knew that my mom was drinking, so I had her drop me off at my aunt's. And as she dropped me off at my aunt's, I remember walking up the driveway, and I remember looking back, and there was a certain look that I kind of just knew something was going on. So I didn't think nothing of it at the time. I went in and I stayed at my aunt's there, and my cousin, he had a bunch of toys and all that and everything, and so I always liked to go to his house. And I went up and we were playing around there, and got ready for bed, and we had 2 single beds, one over here and one over here, and that evening, me and my cousin, we was playing bar. We had a little table there, and we set it up at the top of the steps, and we was pouring shots and tea. It was Lipton's tea. He was pouring shot glasses, and we were sitting there acting like we were selling them to each other. So when we got done with that, then we played Nintendo, laid down, went to sleep, and in that dream that I had was it was almost, it kind of looked like something down in Arizona or something like that. It was a real red rock. And I was standing there and looking around like that, and then here my mom showed up over here, and she said, "Come on, let's go." And she took off running like that. So I started following her, and I was a little boy, and I hollered at her, and I said, "Wait up." And right then she went off the edge of that cliff. So I jumped off there after her, and I could see her falling in front of me like that. And right before she hit, my Aunt Frankie, she woke me up, and my Daga Vern were standing there. And my Daga Vern was kind of a big guy. And I never seen him cry or anything. And I looked up, and I turned a light on, and I said, "Get up." I kind of looked, and my cousin got up. "What's going on?" "Get up." And I seen his eyes, he's filled up with tears. And I knew something went on. And I said, "Your mom got killed. She got ran over by a train." And so as time went on, I ended up going through the system. Went to court, all that stuff. And we're looking at getting placed in a foster home. And so I got placed with my aunt. So I become real good with the court system of how it worked, and I studied people and their roles and what their job and responsibilities and scopes of work were, so I knew how that worked. I focused all of that, so I knew how to strategize this. So I found coming across my caseworker, and I told her, I said, "My aunt, she whips me. I want to go stay somewhere else." And all I wanted to do, because I wasn't getting my way, went on, and she placed me with my choka. And my choka, he didn't mess around. You got up when the sun came up. Otherwise, he was going to get you up. And so as time went on, I lived with him, and I missed my mom every day and still do. And he started showing me how to work on cars, how to work on these things. And when I got about 13 or 14, then he started talking to me about belief and about praying. And here's how you do these certain kind of things. And he shared with me some things that you don't see done today. And he said, "I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to show you these things." He said, "Don't show nobody." He said, "Just leave them alone." He said, "Because if you show them," he said, "they're not going to understand. They're going to think you're making stuff up." He said, and then he talked to me about my bloodline and everything. and come from Chief Whitebreast. There's a picture of him in a public school over there, and come from him, and he told me the whole relationship. And so as time went on, I started to go into high school and experiment. The first thing I did was smoked weed. Then I started drinking. Then I got into coke and then meth and all that kind of stuff. Went down all of those roads, looked like that. Was trying to find that love. Couldn't find it nowhere. Even went up to the cemetery and stood up there and cried around a little bit and tried to find that nurturing feeling that a mother can only give. And one of the things that I come across was where I found it was I started to go and I started to sit down and pray. So I went to the Native American church, I went to the sweat lodge, went to the lodge, all over. And everywhere I went, it was there, that love that I was missing. And so as time went on, I was still in high school and still running around and would go down the river and get into things and walk back from there. And I was coming back and one time and I had one shoe on and I got over there by Betty's house and Frank's house and I picked up this horseshoe and I ran into her and she talked to me on the way back. And I still remember that to this day. And one of the things that was dawned on me then was, when are you going to get tired of this lifestyle? So as I started to go on through all of that, then one of the things that I started to find was start looking behind me. And I started noticing in our little community, in our little village, we have younger men folks that were going down that same path. And I started to look around and notice that it was becoming a trend, that they wanted to be something that they weren't. They wanted to be able to be a different, they wanted to be Mexican, or they wanted to sag their pants or be something. And I was wondering, they want to be that way because they don't know anything about their self, about their own teachings. And so I started to try to take that apart in my mind. And as I was taking that apart in my mind, I started to think about the overall way that the tribe was structured. And that was one of the things that troubled me, was that if I was running around at night, got caught for curfew, where did I go? What did I do after that? They either cite and release, let you go, took you back to your parents, got an ear beating, and then I could do it all over the next day. And then they got a YCIC. So they do a 72-hour hold, evaluation, data, all this. After those 72 hours, what happens to that child? They try to do an outreach and try to work with them. And so I was looking at that, and I said, then from there, where does it go if you're an adult? All of that. I said, we have a whole cycle, a whole system here. But in that whole system and all these tribal programs, there's over 32 plus tribal programs that work with children today in our tribe. In that, where's the spirituality? Where's the culture? Where's the language? And so start trying to visit with different programs and different people and try to be active, try to become proactive with it. But spending all that time and that energy running around and chasing this, run across the time where I said, what am I doing this for? Why am I spending this kind of energy and time when nobody else cares? That was the feeling that I started to feel. So when that feeling came upon me, then I had to sit down and I had to ground back out, had to go to these different ceremonies, and I had to be able to reconnect, put the Creator first. So as I did that and was able to do that and take off again, I started to look at that again. How can I fit spirituality and culture into everything? Because that should be the first thing that should start our days. And so as time went on, a lot of times these different people that would work with us weren't able to understand that. So what we started to try to do was we tried to reach out to them and invite them to just certain ceremonies, just to sit off to the side and be a part of that and witness that, so they could understand how we are and what goes on there, so they would grasp that. And Van Pola has been a part of that. He got to see a little part of that. That's why he is the way he is today. He got in touch with his spirituality side. And one of the things that goes on in our community is we have a lot of things that happen when it gets dark, when the sun goes down. We have a lot of things that go on in our community. And way back there, they were saying, the elders, they would say, when they built this place over here, they said there's going to come a time where money is going to divide your people. And today we're facing some of those things. Before that, they would say, the elders way back there, they said, there's something coming. There's something coming. We can't see what it is. It's a web. So everybody's thinking of a spider web. And today, it's the World Wide Web. Because we have children that are learning things at the ages that they shouldn't be learning things. So way back there, it was alcohol that was put in front of us. Today, it's modern technology. So each one of us have a relative or are guilty of our own, of when our child is being loud in the gatherings. Here, watch my phone. And so there's the disconnect right there, that these devices can also make you lose your identity if it's not brought up and talked about in the own home. Who you are, where you come from, your teachings, the responsibility of a male figure and a female figure, those kind of things. And in our different programs, there used to be time where they would go out and they would reach out to all these different ones. They got a hold of them for information on how to work with different structures. So in the Ho Chunk Way, there's the 12 clans. In those 12 clans, there's kinship. Each clan has a responsibility, and those clans, different ones take care of different ones, different clans. And so it's structured. And today, the government is structured like that. And so if you look at some of the stuff that goes on in our world, a lot of it is we're looking for that love. We have right now, yesterday morning, there was a city that got blew up, and they were showing this on the news. These bombs were coming in, and the news, they went over there and they interviewed this child. She was crying, a little girl. And they said, "What are you crying for?" And she said, "Because I don't want to die." And so her mother and her father were there trying to tell her it's going to be all right. And so them things that go on in the world, they affect us here, because everywhere in the world there's water, and that water has got a spirit. There's a lot of things. They tried to take water apart itself scientifically and look at it, freeze it, put it under these different microscopes. And when they were able to do that, one of the things that they come across was that little piece of water that was froze like that. They looked into it, and inside there was crystals, and what it spelled was love. And so all of these things around the world, they're all connected. There's a lot of stuff that make us who we are today, even our physical being. And so as we move forward into trying to further outreach to some of the relatives that want to get their life straightened out and these kind of things, it's going to take all of us, every one of us, and those that aren't even here. No matter what seat you sit in, no matter what role you play, if you have a heartfelt feeling, we can accomplish this through the power of prayer. Thank you for your kind attention. There's still a whole bunch of battery on here. Do you want me to go ahead and use that?
Gee, honest to God, man, I'm shocked. Oh, just in time. I got back just in time. But no, Isaac, I want to thank you. Like Isaac always expresses himself when there's a body lying in state, wait going on, or memorial dinner, and like I say, even though I tease him because he can, he talks from the heart. And he just goes. But I always listen to him because he's got a powerful message, real good message here. So I just got done. I'm not used to delegating stuff or being bossy, but I had to take charge today. So I hope my girls have blessed me back over on the other side. So we got about 20 minutes. Anybody want to say anything?
Father, and that wasn't too, how would I say that? I always kind of tease those guys that are around here, and I always say, my dad and my mom, they had me later. It's 51 years old when I was born. My mom was close to being in her 40s. So all you generations here, I said, my dad, well, my dad's just over here. And then on my mom's side, I have a great grandfather, not a great, but just a great grandfather, my mom's dad, that has his mark on the Omaha treaties back in the 1800s. So there's 3 generations from that time to this time. And with his teaching and the way he was, he told his children and his relatives, all standing, he told them to be good to one another, speak good to one another, and not to offend anybody, and not to talk badly about anybody, because there's certain things in his bloodline that can cause some trouble. And that's what basically they told us. He kind of told us a lot of things. I always tell him, said, I grew up an Omaha boy, but I grew into a Winnavegas man. And they say, why is that? And I said, because when I was growing up, all I was taught was from my mom's side, my uncles, my aunties, my grandmother, and to play and like to laugh and like to do all kinds of things. Apparently, when I was smaller, when I was younger, 2, 3, 4 years old, start walking around, and my mom, my brothers and sisters said I couldn't talk. You say certain things, but we couldn't understand you. It was this, we just didn't understand you. You'd sit there and talk, and we'd look at you and we'd say, what is he saying? The only one that understood me was my little sister. She's 2 years younger than me, and she was here earlier. Her name's Grace, and she'd translate what I was saying. And apparently, whatever I wanted, she knew what it was, and she'd tell my mom, tell my brothers, my older sisters, my older brothers what it was. And when I got older, we was living in Fremont. My dad had a job over there with Boschultz Construction. He was a master carpenter. And one day, a social worker showed up at our house. And they sat my mom and dad down and they said, we understand you have a child and we need to take him. They was talking about me. I didn't know at the time what was going on or anything like that. And they said, he's got some disabilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to take him and put him in an institution and figure out what's wrong with him. And my dad kicked that woman out of the house. There's nothing wrong with my son. I'm going to have him go to school when it's time for him to go to school, he's going to go to school. And I started school off late. I was 6 years old when I started school. And my name is, they named me after my grandpa on my mom's side. His name was Pete Drum. And I didn't know this at the time, but all those generations back from my grandpa Pete Drum, his dad's name was Joseph Drum. And then Joseph Drum had a Pete Drum. So my great-great-grandfather Pete Drum, my great-grandfather Joseph Drum, my grandfather Pete Drum, and then he had a son, an older son. His name was Joseph. He passed away before I had any children, but my mom had her oldest son was Joseph, and her younger son was Pete. And then when I had a son of my own, me and Crystal had a son, we were trying to come up with a name. We was going to say his name's going to be Shane. no, he don't look like a Shane. And that day we was looking at him on that big glass window and stuff like that. Me and my sister Grace was going up, and we said, "Hey, I told Grace Ann, what she's asked me, so what name you gonna give him?" We was thinking about giving him that cowboy name, Shane. You ever watch that movie, Shane? We was watching that movie, Shane. I said, I like that name, Shane. So let's name him Shane. What about a middle name? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And by the time we got up to the hospital, me and my sister Grace, we met Crystal when he walked in the hallway and was looking at all the babies and was looking at Joseph. We said, so you decide on that name? And I told Crystal, I don't know if I want to name him Shane. And she said, yeah, I don't know either. I was thinking maybe, and at the same time we said, how about we name him Joseph? And then I looked at Crystal and she said, yeah, name him Joseph, and we can name him after my brother, Craig. His name could be Joseph Craig. And at the time, my sister looked at me and she had real ugly, not an ugly look, but a real concerned look on her face. And at the time she said, don't name him Joseph. I said, why? I like that name, Joseph Craig. Snowball. No, I had a dream, she said. And I sat there, me and Crystal was sitting there listening to her, and she said, I had a dream about a young baby. He came and he showed me himself. And then he turned, and then he showed himself again. He was just a little boy. And as he was standing there looking at him, he said, my name is Joseph. And I'm going to show you what happened to me. Then he did the same thing again, spun. And she said, when he turned around, he was all beaten up. His eye was black and he had bruises all over his body. She said, don't name him Joseph. But we didn't listen to my little sister. I told my little sister, he showed you his past life, how he was and how he was treated. And we're not going to do that to him. So, as we all know, we have golden children. He was our first one, our Kunu. Then we got a Haga, or we got a Nathan. Or we got a Kunu, we got a Hena, we got a Haga, and then we got a Nake Kunu. And then we came upon a Hino somewhere in the place. She came to our lives 10 years ago. So with that being said, there's a lot of spiritual parts of my life being taught by my mom, my dad. I lost my dad when I was 12 years old, you know. And I think one of the things that I remember Isaac, when he was telling his story about all those things, when I first met Isaac and talked to him, he sat there and listened to me. And it wasn't a scenario where, how would I say it the best? It wasn't a scenario where we sat down at that fire, or we sat down at a meeting, or at that ceremony, or anything like that. First time I talked with Isaac and a group of people is I came to a building, a house that was playing their music too loud. At the time I was a police officer. I knocked on that door. They opened that door. I walked in. There Isaac sat. The woman that was residing at that residence, another person that was on probation and house arrest, sitting there drinking. Kind of told him, I said, hey, you're supposed to turn your radio down. You got a complaint. Oh, okay. And I looked at that one person that was on probation and pretrial release. You wasn't even supposed to be here. You're supposed to be at home. You wasn't even supposed to be consuming. And like Isaac said, he was sitting there, gangstered up, bandana, everything else. And I explained to him, well, Isaac wasn't. He was his Choka's boy. He was kind of dressed up like a cowboy or whatever. He wasn't like that. but that person was sitting there. Asked him, he said, do you know anything about that culture that you're trying to portray, how it's supposed to be? Because you're supposed to be a native person. You're supposed to be a warrior. And everybody looks at that shirt that they gave me, it has warriors on there. And one of the biggest things with me in my heart, the way I feel about those warriors, one of the things, they're protectors, they're providers. They'll do anything for our people. They'll sacrifice themselves. They'll provide for their people. They have humility, integrity. It's not anything like this modern day, the way that other culture tells a warrior's supposed to be. He's a savage. He'll do anything. You know, they all talk about, even though he's not a Ho-Chunk, he's not a Winnebago or Omaha, but that one warrior they always talk about, that crazy horse. The one thing that he said, I'll defend my people at all cost, and I'll do the things that I need to do to keep those people away from what they told us they was going to do. One of the things that he did is when they broke that treaty up there in the Black Hills, is when those gold miners came in to prospect gold. He went in there and he eliminated those gold miners that he found with a band of his warriors. Unfortunately, there was some families involved, women, children. He said, I done that to show those people why we don't want them here, why it's supposed to be this way. Also, the other part of it, they say us Ho-Chunks, they said we were cannibal. Have you guys heard that? But we're not cannibals. We done that, those warriors done that for a reason. There was another enemy over there. And it was outnumbered the Ho-Chunks, and it was going to come in and do something. So the Ho-Chunk warriors took one of them, cut him up, and ate a piece of him. And they say, why'd they do that? That one person sacrificed so a lot of people could survive. And that one tribe said, we're not going to mess with those guys. We're afraid of those people. Then everybody sits there and thinks, man, that guy's kind of crazy, saying us Ho-Chunks are cannibals, but we done that for a reason. There's certain things that are our past where it's not very good. Certain things in our culture aren't very good. Al Pooley has that story about one of his grandmother's stories. And even when I say that one great-grandfather, he took a bride when she was only 18. She got off the train when she came back from that one Carlisle Indian School. She graduated, they dropped her off, and soon she was back on the reservation. My great-grandfather, Zudanazi, took her as his bride. That's why me being here, only the third generation, my great-grandfather, Yellow Smoke, my grandmother, Carrie Drum, Morris, my mom, and me, just 4 generations. So I was gonna tell you something else too, but it's almost time to go home. I'm still punched in at work, so I got to go punch out. But one of the things with Ken Van Pola, I told somebody about him sitting in his courtroom one time, not as a police officer or anything like that, but I got called for jury duty. And I came in and I sat down, and there was a whole bunch of other people. And it wasn't for the jury duty, but I got summons for jury duty. And when I sat down, I forgot about it. So I got another summons, a show cause subpoena saying, oh, you got to come in and show cause why you didn't show up for jury duty. So I walked in, and there's a whole bunch of people in his courtroom. Judge Van Polo was sitting on his judge thing right there, and I sat down, and a whole bunch of other people were sitting here. I can't remember which lady was up there, but she got stood up, and she started pleading her case to Judge Van Pola. And she started saying, well, I had to go do this over here. Then I had a very important meeting over here. And I had all this kind of stuff over here. So what are you going to plead? I'm not going to plead because I had certain things I had to do. And I had to do this and I had to do that. And then Judge Van Pola said, okay, he kind of hit his gavel on a thing, and he said, you're guilty of contempt of court. I'm going to fine you $125 plus court costs, which is $50. You can go out there and pay the clerk. And she kind of grumbled around and walked off. And when I heard that, I looked at everybody else sitting in that seat, and all of a sudden the court clerk came up. Okay, there's another case. Would be Pete Snowball Sr. to come up. And I kind of got scared, and I thought, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? So I got up there, and Judge Van Polo said, okay, Mr. Snowball, how do you plead? What's your reasoning why you didn't show up for jury duty? And I was sitting there really trying to think of something, and all I can think of was, I forgot. And everybody kind of looked at me like what they was saying behind me, but I said, I forgot about it. Then Judge Van Pola, okay, you're guilty, contempt of court, fine you $25 plus court cost. Then I kind of looked back at those guys, and they said, that's what I'm going to plead to. That's what I'm going to say. Later on, I asked him, I said, why'd you give me that $25 fine? Because he was honest. You just forgot about it. Other guys were trying to come up with excuses after excuses, he said. So that's how he was in tribal court. And I think Terry's ready to excuse everybody. So one of the biggest things with the Father to Sacred, it's one of those things when I was working as a police officer, I looked at everything, and everything that you see as a police officer is different when you're walking around in street clothes and stuff. So when you're a police officer, you see everything, you hear everything, you see how people treat each other, you see how people treat their children. And in my mind and my heart, I said, we need something to change. We need something here that can change the minds of the people. And then when I walked into the school, and the first time I walked into the school, I had something going on with my children. Terry was there. He was in the gym. He was talking, and I didn't know what was going on. He walked in and sat down, and they start talking about Fatherhood is Sacred. Al Pooley was there with some of his fathers from Arizona, and they stood up and they talked. And I thought to myself, this is exactly what we need. Except at the time, I wasn't working in Winnavegas as a police officer. I was working down in the Omaha tribe as a police officer. So what happened then was I just told my chief down there, I told him, I said, I'm going to come up here and we're going to go through the sessions. So I was one of the first classes of the Winnebago tribes. Me and Terry was facilitator, and we had several other fathers that were involved with that first class. And Scott Aldridge was there, Raw Laura, Tom, my brother Tom was there, and we sat through there, and it changed. And Terry was kind of surprised me at one time. He just kept on telling me, hey, Pete, I want you to go down to Arizona with me. Well, for what? Well, I'll tell you when I get down there. He never told me why the reasoning was, I just want you to go down there with me. And at the time he said, well, I want you to be a facilitator. I was thinking about everybody, and you'd be a good facilitator for that program. I said, yeah, I will, but I don't want to go down there by myself. Then he said, well, I got to find funding for myself so I can go down there with you. So that's how he ended up going down there. And just hearing about certain things about Al Pooley prior to meeting him personally, it was like, how many people seen that one movie, Malcolm X? Anybody see that movie, Malcolm X? Remember when Malcolm X finds that spiritual being in himself? He said they told him to bend his knee, and he said he couldn't do it until he finally did it. And then he had that one. They have that one part where he's going up to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I said that was my feeling when I met El Puli. So I'm going to give this back to Terry because I guess still likes to talk a lot, and he owes me a hot dog dinner over at the Milwaukee Wiener House.
Okay, remember I told you this morning I was going to tell my Pete Snowball story, but now here it is. They're both finally here. All my stories are true, unless I tell you I'm teasing. So when we first started facilitating down at the court, geez, me and Pete used to have 28, 30 dads, more in class. We used to start at 5 o'clock with potluck. Here, had a potluck. We start at 5 here. Usually the class, 2 hours, done. 10 o'clock, we still going because these Indian men couldn't stop talking, crying, tears coming out. And so that night, we went to about 10:30. So next day, I seen Crystal in the store. Hey, Crystal, how you doing? Crystal started glaring at me. Geez, I thought Father and the sacred's supposed to bring families together. Pete Snowball follows you out the door. He never comes back. You get home to about 11 o'clock last night. Geez, she started giving me an ear beating, getting after me. I said, Crystal, I'm going to tell you like it is right now. Your husband, Pete Snowball, he stood up in front of all those men. He said, I've been married to my lovely, beautiful wife many years, over 20-some years now. She blessed us with 5 sons. And I love her more and more each day. Crystal got red, so teared up. Did he say that? That's right. Next day, the next morning, Pete Snowball coming out of the Heritage back then. Pete Snowball kind of pimping around too. I walked by, I got, damn. Pete Snowball walked around 2 hickeys on his neck. That's what fatherhood can do. That's what fatherhood can do to you. And so the rest is history. That's how it is. Pete been my brother for many years. We used to go into jail. We've been all over the country together. So with that now, then we're going to be excused, go shower up, wash up, come back in your tuxedos tonight, black tie, and have that banquet tonight. It's going to be starting at, it's going to start about 5:30. Tribal chairwoman will be here tonight. Got some other dignitaries coming in. So we can take a rest and be back here. What time is it? 3:15. So I got the drum coming tonight. Perry Creek Singer's going to come. I'm going to have a wonderful evening. So if you must, go in there and make a donation to the casino or go in there and hit the jackpot. So you'll be excused right now. God bless you. Thank you, Garen. Oh.